Welcome to another exciting fireside chat. I'm Mahesh Iyer, your host and a fractional CRO, and I'm thrilled to bring you deep insights into business, leadership, and entrepreneurship. Today, we are joined by someone truly exceptional, a powerhouse of entrepreneurship and academic excellence, Professor Suresh Bhagavatula. Suresh is a professor in entrepreneurship area at the prestigious IIM Bangalore, where he has been shaping minds for over 17 years. His work at NS Raghavan Center for Entrepreneurial Learning involves incubating startups, conducting impactful courses, and spearheading empirical studies in entrepreneurship. Beyond academics, he has co-founded Head Start Network Foundation, fostering entrepreneurship on grassroots level for the past 16 years. So, along with me, joining me today is my co-host Shashwat Ghosh, a fellow fractional CMO and an extraordinary fractional CXO. Together, we will explore the intersection of entrepreneurship, leadership, and growing trend of fractional CXO in modern business. So, welcome Suresh and welcome Shashwat.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here. Happy to be in this conversation, and let's see where it goes.
So let me start with Suresh, your journey spans so many years, entrepreneurship, mentorship. Um, with the changing times with AI and trends in entrepreneurship, give me some highlight so that the listeners can know about it.
So there was this big question in terms of like when entrepreneurship occurred in India. At what point of time has it started to become very popular? And go back, Indians have always been very entrepreneurial, super entrepreneurial. Go back historically, you will see Indian artifacts at places which are very hard to get to. And these objects went there because of a very large network of people. Many of them are of Indian in origin. So if you look at from a historical lens, Indians have always been very, very entrepreneurial. So if you look at money lenders in Southeast Asia, mostly from the Chettiar community, and then if you look at these large Sindhi networks for Central Asia or Western Asia, which is with Kerala. So people kind of always interacted with commerce, always interacted with producing for the world. And I think a biggest barrier to entrepreneurship has been, I guess, in and around, as India is kind of getting into in and around after independence, somehow we seem to have deemed it dirty to be making money.
Mhm.
That making money is not really something very good, right? That took a while to get washed off, maybe because of a socialistic transformation that India had after independence, that yes, we should be concerned about other individuals. So you had two broad running races happening, a socialistic perspective where all of us together should grow, or a capitalistic perspective where some grow faster than others. Both have brought development. But at some point of time, humans seem to react very strongly to greed than to good. Right? So to an extent, capitalism may likely, while we are altruistic in nature, altruism does play a role, but greed also plays a role. So we are not entirely greedy, nor are we entirely altruistic. So somewhere in between capitalism and socialism may have worked, but since we went into socialism, and then if you look at the license large, access to resources became very difficult. And restrictions in terms of how much to invest vested with bureaucrats. Decisions related to what should be produced in this nation rested with bureaucrats. The fact that we had to endure something like ambassador for many, many years was not because we didn't have people or corporates who could not make cars. It's just that they did not have license to make cars. So in a way, we kind of systematically undermined our entrepreneurial ability to solve problems. We started to look at entrepreneurship from a cash perspective and from we shouldn't let people become very greedy, we shouldn't let people become very wealthy, and we should have much more altruism in nature. But if you were to look at entrepreneurship as a vehicle to solve problems and how do I get access better, you could have actually looked at much more enabling environment for entrepreneurship to have solved problems, right? So if you look at where we are, I was just telling the class this morning that in 2007, I'm sure all of us would have struggled to spell entrepreneurship without going to the spell check.
Correct.
Right? So it was not very far long ago that it was very hard for us to spell entrepreneurship or be an entrepreneur. Right? So when I was growing up, when somebody said, I'm doing business, it means that they didn't get a job.
Mm.
Right? You do business when you didn't get a job. Or if you look at our Bollywood, villains were always businessmen, like handing cash here, getting something done against the grain of ethics. But somewhere that perspective changed, and then you have much more sleeker entrepreneurs who heroes became entrepreneurs. Right? So that perspective, from a cultural acceptance point of view, as a career option, as a reputed career option, as a career option that you still get into marriage market and say, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a startup, I do business, was seen positively, I think, since 2007 onwards, where there have been lots of interesting ways in which entrepreneurship started to happen. So the change I see with entrepreneurship in the 90s and in 2000s is that entrepreneurship in the 90s, they were trying to solve world's problems using cost arbitrage as a model. You had extremely talented resources available, which was quite affordable, and information and communication technologies made it possible to have them. So when I was in the 90s, I had very brief, I wasn't in the software industry, but I was in a company that had software. So there was this thing called body shopping. When somebody didn't turn up for 2 days, you know that they're going to get a call from the US saying that I'm now in the US, right? That went off to onshoring, offshoring kind of activities. But primarily, our business model has been around cost arbitrage. That you had very talented but affordable manpower here. So let's use it. So we were using our skill sets to see how do we solve world's problems. And I see that huge shift in late 2000s where people said, let's solve for Indian problems, right? Redbus was solving India. Flipkart was solving for India. So a lot of people were saying that let's now solve for India, leveraging whatever this internet that started to become very popular by then. Mobile phones, people started to have them, right? We have had technology leapfrogging. A large segment of a society tasted internet on mobile phones than on computers. Correct. And so we kind of leapfrog from, we didn't have computers to laptops to mobile phones. A large number just had access to mobile phones directly. If you look at millions of people, right? So that kind of made it possible for us to start to solve for a lot of problems that we currently have, right? Right from just dial. Just dial wouldn't have happened if people didn't have mobile phones. So elsewhere we would have said, let's make Yellow Pages that is retrievable on an app, but we just flipped it saying that everybody has a phone, just call it because that's something that we're used to. Right? The problem is search, and they solved it by calling because everybody had a mobile phone in their hand. So the perspective in terms of what entrepreneurship is has been changing. And right now, I think technology is being used both for solving, maybe early days of solving for world problems again, tech-based, high-end, cutting edge. But we seem to be more in terms of solving for India right now.
Interesting.
So that's almost like a entrepreneurship 1.0, then 2.0, 90s, 2000s, and probably till about 2015. Then probably COVID happened. It was one of the most biggest technology enabler. And now that AI has happened, sitting in 2025, uh, and you have gone through these phases, you have already in your life spoken to more than or taught more than 18,000, if I've got the number right, 18,000.
Because online, thanks to COVID, the large number of people were taking these courses.
So roughly about 18,000 entrepreneurs, I can safely say, have been taught by you. What you were, say, teaching about 2 years back and now in the AI age, what has changed? What has changed for the entrepreneur? What has changed for the startup founder? What is the access? Has it democratized completely? What is the new paradigm?
So I have been looking at AI more seriously since few months.
Okay.
And coming from an academic background where we have not been looking at AI positively, because we have been thinking in terms of our AI policies, how do we curb usage of AI? It is because we are in the human capital game, right? You can't build human capital if students use AI to give us answers. So the answers that we would expect should come from slight transformation of human capital in terms of frameworks, in terms of case studies, in terms of thinking through in situ, like what do you think we could do, right? And that perhaps would get them to think and connect the dots differently. But if you ask AI and it's giving you one random answer, which kind of fits the bill in terms of satisficing what could be seen as okay answer that may get an average marks, but that's okay. And then we don't want those things to happen. So as academics, we struggle with technology which can displace human capital. But the way I look at it off late, looking at people like Ethan Malik and some of those stellar scholars who are bringing in AI, what I've realized is it can be a very powerful tool if you know how to ask questions. The fundamental problem I see with Indian education is that we have gone through rote learning, which is not bad. I don't think rote learning is bad, right? That if you can tell 7 table, 8 table, 9 table and mug it up and know it by heart, in and out, it does help you. It does help you cognitively in terms of multiplication data. You're keeping your mind very active, right? Now you're going to move all of that away to a machine. But in order to do that, what we now require is our ability to ask questions. And that is inherently not English. We don't ask questions because we tell children, do it because I tell you so, not because you chose so. Because I was in Germany and I do remember my people around, some friends of friends, they were asking this 5-year-old, what do you think? I was like pretty surprised. What do you mean? What do you think? She's 5-year-old. What is she going to tell you? It's your decision. You go with it. How does it matter what this little 5-year-old thinks? It's not that she will say, okay, I'll go away.
It's a completely new paradigm which is taking shape right now.
No, I mean to say, you're asking for people opinion and you get people opinion. And this little girl was trying to argue why this mother should not be seeing this guy.
Yeah.
But I thought, like, it's up to you, man. Like, what is it that you think this little one knows something, doesn't know something? He has 5-year-old perspective of the world, out of which 3 years she didn't even know what world is. Right? So, what do you think she can do? But then it's not about, now I realize it's not about what is the answer that they got, but they're training them in asking questions. In thinking through, okay, what does it mean, this guy being in my mother's life or this guy not being in my mother's life?
Curiosity.
It's not curiosity even. She's also imagining, like, okay, I like this, I don't like this. So will what I like be influenced by this person? What is my world going to be and how is it going to intersect with this new person coming in? Right? But for us, we grew up on collectivistic mindsets where we are only taught to do what we say.
Exactly.
We know what is right for you, which in most ways also function.
Yeah.
We have lived as long as the Western civilization has. There are times when Eastern civilizations have been better. There are times when Western civilizations have been better. But by and large, we are not so far away behind them.
Sure.
Right? So it's not as if this mode of development and building human capabilities is any different from what they were doing. But it is left us with not having critical thinking. So we comply more than we question. We don't like questioning. So when you don't like questioning, you don't know how to ask. And if you don't know how to ask, you don't know how to give prompts. When you don't know how to give prompts, you're not going to be able to use that to you.
Correct.
So in a way, what you're saying is largely if you are a startup founder and you have been in this wave of AI, and which quite literally is a 2-year-old kid at this point of time and asking and understanding a lot of things, but in a very different scale, so to speak. And that is where you kind of bring in the aspect of, say, a fractional expert who brings in that critical thinking angle and asks the right questions and help the startup to meet their growth objectives or whatever is their objective of the startup. Is that what you are kind of alluding to?
I get there first, but staying on with the education part, I have been reading some faculty members who say that, look, I don't care what ChatGPT answered. I'm interested in what did you ask ChatGPT. So I'm going to evaluate you not on what you submit, but on what prompts you use for ChatGPT. So smarter your prompt, I know ChatGPT will give a better answer. But I'm going to evaluate you on the kind of questions that you ask. Because there's a very interesting thought process. The answers we get depend on the questions we ask. And since we have not trained ourselves in questioning, which is what I think our current education in this age of AI should do, is like get people to be more smarter at asking questions. Because if you understand your lay of the land, then you ask smarter questions. It's not smarter questions, it's also smarter and real questions.
True.
Because you know the lay of the land. You know how this industry functions. So therefore, you know the constraints. So contextually, those constraints are very important because ChatGPT may give you answers based on Germany or US or Japan or elsewhere. There's less friction. But contextual understanding of asking very real-time questions is something, a capability that requires to be old. And given the fact that fractional expertise that is available, actually, here's how I look at it. Given that the expertise is now available, fractional is what startups can afford.
Yes.
That you
That's a great.
that you are an expert. I don't need you all the time. Right? Can you help me set up these things? So you bring in the knowledge, you bring in the lay of the land, you bring in what works, what doesn't work in terms of the contextual setting. Now, can you help me figure out the expert systems and create those boundaries for me so that I learn faster? So, what would have taken you 5 years to learn can be learned by this individual in 6 months' time. Because it is an interaction between you, your expertise that is being given in a very rapid manner to this individual who can now start to play the game with a technology that is available to them.
So one last aspect which I actually want to ask is fractional. If you look at it, the consultant and advisors had been there for quite some time, right, in the ecosystem. But if you see, if I have to go back into your 18,000 set of founders, how many used consultant advisors would be fairly small number. One, maybe because they were very costly, or the other one where fractional actually adds a lot of value is that you did not have skin in the game in the earlier one, whereas now you have skin in the game. Do you think that has changed? I mean, that is one of the reasons why the Indian ecosystem has kind of warmed up to the fractional idea.
I think fractional could also be looking at an affordable loss.
Okay.
That let me try out for a little bit of time and see if it is affordable for me. Having said that, most startups don't understand the difference between mentoring and consulting. They come and ask me, what should I do? I say, I don't know. I don't know. I don't have this magic wand that I can wish all your problems away and then create that very smooth, frictionless surface. I don't know. If you can come and ask questions saying that here is the logic and here is what I think, here is the logic and here is what is an alternative perspective. I'm not able to think. And then I probably start to look at this logic and then see whether logic smells right to me. So what we've realized, one of a doctoral student, is that those who tried one or two startups do mentorship differently than those who are doing it for the first time. Because your ability to get feedback and understand feedback is also a capability that needs to be honed. As a startup owner, you are responsible. I can only say, okay, here is the arrow that I think may work for you.
You have to.
But you need to know where to aim, what to do, how to do. But somebody else can do it for you as a consultant. So looking at it as a mentor, looking at it as a consultant. So consultants were also very expensive. People didn't know whether this will work out or not. So perhaps there could be this affordable loss for people to say that, you know what, can I try it out for a little bit and see if it works for me, starts to solve and there is energy, then people may start to play the game differently, right? So I think right now, in terms of fractional, gives you that perspective that I don't need to pay for the full resource. I can pay for what I can afford, like SaaS model, that I pay for what I use. Maybe something like that come in. But fractional expertise can play a very important role in telling entrepreneurs what kind of prompts they can use with the technology. Because you are training them very rapidly in terms of now you are looking at from a temporal lens, but I'm not here to hold your hand all the time. Hold your hand quickly for a little bit of while until you start to understand how to play this entire technology game. So if you can morph into saying that I'll help you very quickly get out to the AI world because you don't know how to ask questions. We know how to ask questions, but I can very quickly enable you so that I see myself as a temporal expertise that you have access to but we kind of move you into a slightly more expert. Call me when you have issues. But I'm available, but you don't have to pay for all of my time every single second, but only for the time that you're engaging with me. Right. So I think this entire nexus or juxtaposition between partial expertise, fractional expertise, intersecting with, as of now, non-thinking entity where it's not clever. You have to still be clever. It doesn't tell you, ask me a better question. It just answers because you asked and then it answers. You could ask, could there be a better way of asking you? I keep asking that as well. So now if you were you, if it's not me, you, what would you do? Right? So I do know there are limitations, but also trying to say, like, at what point of time, I haven't played a lot with it, but I see this as an interesting experiment. Like, I'm asking students, at least in my class, use ChatGPT to figure out, you want to be in this game, ask ChatGPT, like, what ideas do you think we could work on? Use this framework and then ask questions. Knowing that framework plus your area that you want to work in and the kind of ventures that you want to start gives you those constraints for ChatGPT to give you some ideas. But in most creative exercises, it's being that moment which will get you that penny drop. So you can get into that moment very quickly with ChatGPT because you're thinking something, that entity is thinking something, and you probably may come up with an amalgamated thought process, which is not just this non-living thing that's giving you an idea or what you are thinking. It's kind of an amalgamated, interesting alloy that could be of great value. I think, so therefore prompt engineering is very important. That's everybody knows. The reason why it's important because we don't have the capability, we haven't honed that capability, and that's where people like y'all can come in and offer that capability to startups, because right now nobody's playing with AI. And I think it's a huge underutilized capability for entrepreneurs.
Some amazing points, Suresh. I wanted to get a little bit ahead. Usually, when I talk to founders or startup CEOs, they ask me a question: what does a fractional do? How does fractional make a difference? I usually tell them, my analogy is, we are like surgeons. We are not doctors. We are surgeons. We come when you have problems. We come, fix your problem, and we go out. That's the way I look at it, and that's the way I tell my founders. So, from your perspective, the current new breed of founders and startup CEOs, what do they look for when they are starting their business or when they are looking at entrepreneurship? Because the new breed of founders are young, 23, 24, 25. What do they look at? Because typically they will look at the modern technology. AI, we have gone deep dive and we have spoken about it. But in terms of their mindset of starting a business and what kind of investments they look at, what kind of people they hire. That's why when you mentioned that fractional could be a much easier option, much lesser option, because initially you're bootstrapped, you're not investing a lot, you're putting your own money. So instead of hiring a senior director or a senior resource in sales and marketing or in technology or in product, rather look at a fractional CF. So what do you think are the new breed of, when you are training those new entrepreneurs, what do they look at? What's their mindset as?
So I don't think a person's, let us say, quandary about what should I be doing now when you started your venture has ever changed, because you're dealing with uncertainty.
Correct.
So the reason is I am trying to pursue based on a bunch of assumptions. So most people, the way I see, are too solution driven. That they would like to solve for this.
Correct.
So therefore, they are so much more in line with what needs to be done, because we like to live in a deterministic world of like, hey, do X, Y happens. So therefore, for Y to happen, I need to do X. So therefore, I need to have a product. I need to put all features of a product. Then we start to imagine customers in terms of what they would want, and then build features according to the imaginary customer segments. Most successful entrepreneurs that I've seen are more interested in the lay of the land.
Mm.
So they will have to play the game as Minesweeper, not a jigsaw puzzle.
Excellent. That's an amazing analogy.
Right? So jigsaw puzzle is what we would like to think entrepreneurship is. That there are pieces, I just need to pick these pieces and slot them there, and I have a picture.
Right.
But Minesweeper is about that strategy that is situational, decisions that are situational. Do X, 17 squares may open. Do Y, you get bombed. Right? So your decision-making capabilities will have to be feedback-driven, not big picture-driven. Right? So that understanding of moving away from entrepreneurship as a jigsaw puzzle with a definite picture in it to a Minesweeper where you need to navigate is what is required. Right? And that hasn't gone through. That problem has never gone away.
Right.
You may have cheaper resources that are available to you in order to play the game. That you could put up a video and then see what happens, which you couldn't do it in the past.
Correct.
Or you could leverage social media and then put up some slides and see what happens, right? Building that MVP is much easier. Getting access to people in terms of MVP is much easier. But the harder part is to understand the lay of the land, where it dips, where it goes up. And that is the part which I think these decisions can get faster if somebody starts to tell them this is how the lay of the land is in this particular industry. There's some industries which are so novel that history doesn't tell us what to play. But there are lots of spaces where it is possible for us to solve if only you know that industry.
Correct. True.
If you know that industry, like for instance, right? I have this online BBA program that we started at IIM with the intention that we should learn how to democratize, we should learn how to make it more affordable, we should make it more stackable, and therefore looking at students as they know what to take, they know how much to take, therefore let's start offering it to them. But I start to notice so many problems that the world has not been solving for me. And that will only come if you jump into the pool and play around. If you had asked me what my problems were when I had started, I have no idea. But now that I've started, I would like to know how students should be given iCards. Okay, if it is an iCard, what if he leaves after 2 terms? Because he doesn't have to tell me. So in which case, how do I tell that he's not a bona fide student 1,200 kilometers away? Right? So I'll give you a digital card. You can poke around with it, do whatever. But like, who's going to keep track of the marks? How are we going to run these programs? How are we going to tell them? Like, how do we now start integrating them with other universities that would like to have students in undergrad? Oh, come on exchange. So we don't have process for exchange. So now how do we do this? So there are lots of issues that come up once you start to move. But people with expertise can say that here are the problems with your expertise can solve for.
Correct.
Right? So there are lots of problems that need to be solved, which you need industrial expertise, you need the lay of the land. And there are problems that are very new that we don't know. So that set, I think, would be able to, that said, would be beneficial from looking at expertise that the fractional CXOs, CROs, CMOs can bring in to say that, you know what, here is how you need to play the game. But the problem of not understanding early stage entrepreneurship doesn't depend on technology or the time frame. It is expertise versus non-expert. So the way in which expert take decisions are different from way in which non-expert takes decisions. As a startup, you need to understand that you need to build expertise, build it faster than everybody in your neighborhood. So to that, they can very quickly, if you could give them that expertise very rapidly, then they can learn very fast and got down to a trajectory which is different.
But there would be certain, say, expertise which you want core to your startup. For example, maybe the product expertise or very specific actions that you want to stay within the startup. Whereas there are certain other aspects, for example, the branding needs to be within that startup, but the lead generation maybe can be outsourced to an expert. And similarly, in the sales part, the sales outbound or SDR can be outsourced, but the core thing needs to be, the company needs to understand how to sell. And that is where probably a CRO can actually help the company understand or create the processes around it. Have I understood it right?
So yes, I think exactly that it is now possible to outsource some of this activities to either another startup who can do it for you or to ChatGPT who can do it for you, if you can build some systems around it. But what to do is something that will take some time for this startup to get to. So there is this principle called corridor principle, which was very popular, which I really like, which is not really talked about, is that entrepreneurship is about entering the first corridor. It's only when you enter the first corridor do you know that there are other corridors that are available. So most entrepreneurs start with something, notice something else, go that direction, notice something else, and then go that. Right? Look at most startups. It is not what they started. Facebook was not what it started. Meesho was not what it started. PayPal was not what it started, or the way in which it was started for a different reason, for a different set of usages. But it kind of evolves into a startup that starts to become known, and that's a journey. And there's a book called Getting to Plan B. And getting to Plan B is, Plan A is metaphorically the plan that you start with, and Plan B is metaphorically the plan that is working out for you. And between Plan A and Plan B, there are tons of corridors that you need to navigate. And in that navigation process, you either can learn everything by yourself, doing experiments, spending time, spending resources, or you could very quickly get expertise from outside so that you navigate from Plan A to Plan B much more faster, and also have parts of Plan B which can be more built on efficiency. Because again, you need to really identify what works for you. Your business model will have to be worked out. But that may again take time, right? So Plan A to Plan B, I know this is the idea that's going to work. Now, how do you build a business plan? How do you get paying customers? How do you get paying customers to come back and pay more or pay again? And that journey, I think, is where they may need some expertise in the functional part of it. Right? The functional part of it. How do you build systems? How do you build routines? Because startups are about coordination. How do you coordinate? If a person gets into Microsoft and leaves Microsoft know what to do. They know where to put this person, where to take this person. How do you coordinate resources in order to reach the end game? In startups, the coordination is all emergent and temporal. And in that coordination game is where I see expertise coming in to say that here is how you can efficiently build coordination systems which takes your mind space away so that you can look at things differently. Otherwise, most entrepreneurs tend to do everything themselves. There are no delegation, there are no routines, there are no processes as a venture starts to build. And that will come back to bite them later. You may have a very good start, you may have identified a very good niche, but you would realize you're coordinating it all wrong. But then there's somebody else who may be coordinating it far better.
So I want to add to what Saraswat said. I want to understand the mindset of a, because we deal with different types of founders. Mostly we deal with tech founders because both of us do the GTM, we do the product market fit, we do the sales and revenue aspect, and we work with a lot of tech founders. Sometimes it's very difficult to engage with a tech founder to make him understand that what GTM is, how to do the sales, how to do the marketing. And then you have other type of founders who have hired CTOs and CPOs to build the product, but they are the ones who have, it's their idea, it's their problem, and they are trying to solve, get it solved. So how do you manage these kind of mindset? So if I'm engaging with the tech founder, what should be the mindset for a fractional CXO to engage with? Is there a different way we can handle them? Because your experience of talking to so many entrepreneurs in your own way, just wanted to understand it. I hope that question.
Yeah. So, coachability is an attribute that plays a role. And there are conflicting, intersecting what issues that are at play here. If a founder was somebody who complied with the larger social norms of getting a job, he wouldn't go chuck his job and start something on his own. The fact that he would like to aspire to do things differently from what is socially accepted, while we say entrepreneurship is big, good, and all of those things, but by and large, in Indian society, it's still not seen as a most preferred form of career. Right? So if somebody is doing it, that means that they're ignoring some of the social norms and doing things differently. So that means they are not listening. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing this. Right? And then they tend to have certain levels of narcissism, which is the reason why they start to think for themselves, saying that this is what I would like to achieve. So therefore, you need to understand that at what point of time is this trait of I believe in myself entirely, what I would say, identity led, or it is temporal led. That I need to have this until the time I start, until the time I'm doing things, but I need help at this point of time. Or to say that I know what to do, I know how to do because I am the one who chose, I know. Right? So at some point of time, this internal locus of control will have to give way and say that, okay, I need help. But you need to understand it's not your venture. You cannot do it for those guys. They are the ones who are running it. Some people get it, some people don't get it. So I don't think you should take it upon yourself to say that you should have 100% success rate. You will have to create that learning environment for the founder to realize your expertise, realize your importance.
So, Professor, you picked on very important one aspect, which is the locus of control. are there any frameworks to deal with this locus of control when you are dealing with a founder?
No, I don't think, look, it is a double-edged sword. That's the reason I'm saying it's a double-edged sword. That to have locus of control gives you that confidence. But somebody else is not. I don't have fatalism.
But when the person is giving away from that locus of control, because now you have reached some bit of scale and you have realized that I need
have control.
and now I need experienced fractionals or full-time guys, whatever the case is. How do you kind of ensure that this is a smooth transition?
So I think you should look at it from another point of view. You should create categories of founders for yourself.
Okay.
Who are those founders with whom you can create magic? And who are the founders where there is some resistance? So assuming that you're going to create magic with everybody, I think is a hypothesis that you may need to revisit. That it is okay for somebody to not to get it, and you are not in the game to convince that person. You are using attention to get to people who would want it, right? And you're only looking at tech founders. You're not looking at tens and thousands of family businesses who may want to digitize, who may want to transform, who may want to jump into this digital world. They're not there. There are lots of women entrepreneurs who are running 3 crore, 4 crore, 5 crore ventures. They are finding it difficult in order to figure out what should the next stage of gameplay to be, right? So do not restrict yourself to this tech people who are drawing their Kool-Aid from Silicon Valley. And right, which is good in certain cases, but if they start to believe in that narrative, then it may or may not work. But there are people who are fundamentally struggling and grappling with the glass ceiling that seem to be impeding their growth. And they're already reflective. They're looking for solutions. Just there's no way to go to.
That's a great point. So let's pick, say, the women founders or the family-owned businesses. What are the typical challenges, and where do you actually see that this is now the glass ceiling has reached and they are starting to look out? What are those 2 or 3 triggers that one should look for?
I think you should tell the world these are the things, these are the tools that you have. What do they use a tool for is something different that you may not even be aware of. Right? If you're asking me, what would you use a Coca-Cola bottle for? And you go to this Gods Must Be Crazy movie, which you may be aware, which these millennials will not be aware of.
Yes.
So if you look at the uses that the bottle is for, then they use it for multiple ways. So you can only tell here is a bottle, but what people use it for depends on the perspective they're coming from. So therefore, you should be known to a lot more people, talk to people, bring your use cases so that people can say that, oh, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? So you should have to go to some of these family business collectives that are around. Because we are living in a very inefficient world. In as much as we say it is efficient, search is still very inefficient. Search for expertise is even more inefficient. So these women who say that I need this, but there are people, they'll say that we have this problem, what do you think we should do? And the biggest problem is, I think, putting systems in place. Right? creating what I would say a solution which multiple people can take and play the game efficiently, which is what you can do in the US or in some of these advanced economies. I'll just hire you for some time, do this job, and then I'll go ahead because here is what you need to do. Here is how we need to do. So scalability starts to become very easy there because the systems are all so well developed that scalability is so easy in those kind of situations. So if you want to scale a bakery venture, you've got a brilliant product. How do you scale? Right? You have, if you look at Greek yogurt, it scaled very rapidly. Right? So scalability there is known because a lot of adjacencies and expertise that come in to make you grow very rapidly is off the shelf. Here it is, nothing is off the shelf. So therefore, I think you will have to go talk to some of these people, be seen at some of these places, because the way in which your offerings may have to be bundled
Is different.
will be different. That the constructs fractional expertise is available is something that is not even known. Right? How do you put HR systems in place for a family business? Right? You're running 300 people are coming in and working with you. What should your systems be if you want to digitize? People may still be using Excel.
The storytelling you are saying is very important, especially of the use cases that the fractionals can bring into picture, and then also look at how do you ensure that the awareness is there that you are providing this, and this can be a great tool to digitize and to bring scale in your organization. That's how.
Exactly. But then you need to be going to places where some of these things are happening, right? That a large number of people are available, that you also will have to bring in each other's expertise and show that growth is possible because this expertise is available off the shelf because you know it.
So industry associations and all of those places, SMEs, and you kind of explain to them how 2 or 3 fractionals are coming together, and you have the CRO, you have the CTO, and you have the CMO coming together and ensuring that you get the growth. It's almost like a growth in a box kind of a scenario.
Yeah.
Just wanted to add one final question from my side. So what's the unique skills should a fractional CXO focus on to developing to stay relevant in the current competitive environment? Because now everywhere you will find fractionals, because more and more senior resources, any executive who has more than 20 years of experience, now they are slowly getting into becoming a fractional. So any specific skills they should develop?
I would believe that having some form of functional experience that resonates with the people that you're working with
Right.
needs to be there. Like if you're a family business, they understand, you need to understand family businesses are not corporates.
Right.
They have gravity,
Right.
which is different from either a startup or a large firm. So therefore, you need to understand what is it that is required, because your ability is to give a coating which people can consume. Inside medicine could be the same, but that outer coating that you would ask them to pop in could either be a capsule, could be another format, it could be a chocolate format, it could be whatever format. So learning how to do that outer coating, which understands their context, understands their gravity, understands their mindset, but converting your knowledge which can be consumed by them. I think that transformation in your mind is very important, because you come from a world where lots of coordination is standardized.
Correct.
And you're helping them coordinate their processes, their understanding, their elements. That is different for different entrepreneurs, entities. So if you understand that, yes, my core message or the core expertise doesn't have to change, but you can't have one size fits all.
Correct.
Right? So therefore, that edge understanding so that you fit is very important. Your core could still be the same, but you should have flexible boundaries so that you can fit into, at least temporarily, into their jigsaw puzzle story.
Right.
Why do you think many of these startups fail? If you look at the statistics, absolute number 1.4 lakh startups in India and growing at about 12 to 15%. Most of them, whichever get created, will not last. The first year, probably about 10-15% will go off. By the fourth or fifth year, I was looking at a stat and it showed that almost 45% will vanish. Now, in the age of AI, this number will increase dramatically. But surprisingly, there are just 1,400 startups which are AI-focused startups in India at this point of time. So, how do you see this ecosystem evolving? What will happen in the next, say, 1 or 2 years when you will have multiple use cases of AI and you will have more startups which are focused on AI and not just on the SaaS part of the business?
So in terms of startups, right, first of all, entrepreneurship is a capability that gets honed. So first time you start with a bunch of assumptions. And then you do not have your mental models and mental ability to understand and pivot and change to move from plan A to plan B. You don't pursue the right kind of corridors. You are not in that learning space. So you are looking at it more like a causal way. I need to be a unicorn. I need to do something. So the belief with which you start and the knowledge set that you would like to start is not always right. So the way I look at startups, I think failure is an inherent component. Look at it like learning cycling. When you learn cycling, how many times did you fall? 17 times. When you learned cycling, you fell 8 times. Do you say you're a better cyclist than him? No. We all cycle. Right? We all cycle. So failure is the inherent part of that journey of learning how to cycle. It's like learning how to swim. Initially, you don't know whether you should breathe outside, breathe inside. You are not trained well enough to be in that situation. On the ground, you can say, watch your elbow, breathe in when your neck is out, breathe out when your nose is in the water, and then stretch your hand, kick your heels, right? So all these activities play upon your mind when you are swimming, and you end up drinking truckloads of water. But at some point of time, you start to be comfortable. Now you know that this is what I need to do. This is how I need to do. Same thing with startups. I don't think you should look at it as a failure, because if you say 90% of first-time startups fail, 70% of second-time startups fail, 40% of the third-time startups fail. So it's a probabilistic activity that gets better the more darts you throw. So we should enable sandboxes for people to play darts better, faster, so that you learn to be a swimmer, cyclist without falling 17 times, 18 times and things like that. But yes, you fall, but you know what to do. Because you go home and cry, oh, I fell down. Your mother wouldn't shout at you saying, oh, you're such a failure. It's okay. Tomorrow you cycle again, maybe you'll do better tomorrow. Right? But we don't say the same thing with startups.
And this is where a fractional expertise can help fail fast and again grow.
No, it's not that fail fast. It's that failure is bad. Failure is inherent part of it. I'll hold you. I'll run with you. Like our friends used to run with us when we were cycling. We always had somebody running with us.
Yes.
Right? And then at some point of time, he'll let you go. You're talking as if that fellow's still running with you. And you realize that he's not there and you fall immediately. Right? So look at it as that I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be those 2 extra wheels that people have with kids cycling these days, because nobody falls these days. Everybody has those 2 extra wheels that help them cycle until they get that balancing right. So you can actually create sandboxes for people to very quickly learn these elements and tell them, you seem to be leaving to the left, you are doing something to the right. Right? So that's not what you should do. Your posture is different. When you're kicking your legs, your back is bent. You can't bend your back. You have to kick your heels and not bend your back. Right? So those kind of corrections can be very quickly imparted because of your expertise. But the person who's treading water is that fellow, not you. Correct. Right? So you should very quickly learn. Some people learn differently. Some people learn like this. Some people learn like that. That is where your expertise to come in is like, how should I unpack this content which can be consumed? Some kids like eating banana straight away. Some like it mashed. Some like it put in their milk. Mothers know. Right? So you should be in that aware of like the different startups, the different personalities, the different capabilities, different identities. So therefore, what should I do in order for them to get to speed rapidly? Right? So I think that is what you all should learn as mentor, as fractional CEO, because so people keep asking me, like, if you have not started, you don't know how to be a teacher or a mentor. But no good player makes a good coach. True. Right? Just because you know how to kick a ball doesn't mean you can abstract how kicking has to be done collectively. Right? So that element of abstraction of how the game is played is your capability. You are not trained to kick the ball. You're only trained to tell people how to kick the ball to whom. So you're abstracting out, you're at another level of gameplay. Not the real gameplay, but imagine gameplay in terms of how some of these strategies could be enacted on the field. Right? So for you to coach, you need a different mindset. You don't have a player mindset, you have a coaching mindset. I think that's what you all should also start to acquire.
So how different is say a player mindset versus a founder mindset? One of the conversation that is going on is a founder mindset is very, very different. Founder mindset is
manager mode. You're saying the founder mode, manager
versus
mode?
Manager mode.
Yeah. So I think that debate is taken on a different spin. So for anything to succeed, you start with the founder mode and you transform into a manager mode. And if you don't transform into a manager mode, all systems will become reactors. All systems will have bottlenecks because you are the ones who are taking decision. Right? So when everybody starts to behave like you. But when context changes, you may not be able to know how to play the game. So you at some point of time need to transform yourself into being a manager. So let me tell you what's the difference between a founder and a manager. I went to a incubator many years ago in San Francisco. They were incubating women to be restaurant owners, good cooks to be restaurant owners. These are immigrants. These are people, not necessarily immigrants, single mothers who are good cooks. So now train them to be a restaurant owner. So after they do selection, they identify like this 20 women that they're going to work with for incubation. They all ask these women to come with a recipe, which is their best recipe. And then you go to the class with this best recipe. And they take these recipes, put it in the center, shuffle them up, and ask somebody else to pick a recipe and cook. Right? So your recipe is with me, my recipe with him, right? And then I cook. And then they ask people whose recipe it is to say, like, did this come out the way you cook? Most often it is no. Right? So cooking for yourself is not cooking for a restaurant. For you to cook for a restaurant, you need to be a manager, which means you need to unpack that entire process, create structures, and make sure that these things plan out differently. When should you take rice out from the heat when you have a 40-minute ride? Because if you cook it to its optimum, or rice is cooked, and you go on a 40-minute journey, the rice is mushy by the time you go there. So you need to know when to take it out of a hot heat, and the heat is inside, this cooking still going on in that 40-minute drive, so that by the time you take this rice out for an event that you are catering to, the rice is done. So that's an expertise. You are a cook. If somebody is in front of you, you do it. But as a manager, I need to think what should be when and how should it go.
Correct.
So when should I take it off? That is not the same as a cook. So I really like that construct that they give, because that's when the penny drops to say that you are not going to be a cook there. You will be managing somebody else's cooking for you. If they have to be so good at, they're not going to be as good as you. So you need to say that there are three people, task A, task B, task C, and how does that get combined? Which is why Michelin star restaurants can't be scalable, but McDonald's can. Because they've unpacked science to a level where it is understood and quantified, and you can scale it. Right? So these guys don't see their dishes outside themselves. That's the difference between a founder mode and a manager mode.
And somewhere in the manager mode is where the fractional can be
Transformation.
start.
So the transformation is where I think you all will be helpful.
Understood.
That how do I transform you from a founder mode into a manager
Management
mode?
mode, correct.
Because you don't have founding expertise the way they do, because they understand. You want Japanese food, that lady understands Japanese food. But I understand how to systemize. I understand how restaurants work. I understand how catering works. I understand how orders are taken. I understand how we can buy in bulk. Right? So that process, and so the transformation of founder mode to manager mode is where I think you guys can play a very important role.
One other thing which I wanted to ask you before we kind of move towards the last part of the segment is we talked about the 1.0, the 2.0 of entrepreneurship, possibly a 3.0, and now in the 4.0, you are like, the popular narrative is that possibly the SaaS business will be completely killed by AI, right? If you go to say Ken, they had a podcast very recently that they mentioned that the complete Indian SaaS business will vanish, and all of that will be replaced by AI business. And that's a very, very, very. I don't think that kind of a dichotomy exists. Why? How do you see the future panning out? Maybe in the next 2 years.
So if you go back to internet, the conversations that we're currently having was exactly what was panning out in 97. Internet is going to do that, internet is going to that, these guys are going to get killed. Stock market was booming with all these tech companies saying we're going to disrupt the real world. This is no different. We believe that we are in a completely new space. It's going to die. Right? But people don't people underestimate the cleverness with which the incumbents are. Right? Incumbents are very clever. They know that space. They can modify and play the game differently. So if you say that, oh, all these traditional companies are cool, keel over and die because internet companies have come, there was .com bust. It took good 2 decades before internet companies could even start to transform the way in which we do business. And they didn't really disrupt the traditional world, that work with the real world and making it more efficient. So these soothsaying conversations about A is going to be dead, Indians are clever, Indian entrepreneurs are clever. People have been saying handloom is going to die for like centuries. There are like 10 million people in this country. They know what market wants. Sabsachi makes something for Dulipala, then there are hundreds of people who will make it for others. So I do not doubt the entrepreneurial capabilities of Indians at large. We are like super entrepreneurial. Super entrepreneurial. We survived in this nation for like thousands of years. People have come, people have gone, but we are still surviving. There was famine, whatever, we survive, right? So, and that survival, like tenacity, is what is going to transform these guys like family businesses. Why are they still around? You may ask. Somebody is going to come and disrupt them. Oh, well, we're going to work with them. You're going to work with them. So the way in which SaaS models, if they say they're going to be AI based, maybe they will, maybe they won't. But the fact is that the efficiency may get better, but they are anyway not going to replace the human interactions, right?
Correct.
So certain decisions may become better, certain ways in which processes are done in terms of building those may be better, different. But productizing services is here to stay as much as servicing products. Products can also be serviced, and then services can be product. I think
That's the change which is happening now. We are more talking about, earlier it was software as services. Now we are talking about services, as a software. And what we are saying is, I used to always believe that 30 years back, computer, or 40 years back, computer came, people said things will change. Computer became an enabler. Then internet came, people said the same thing. It became an enabler. It helped you to work things more efficiently. Similarly, I feel AI is more like an enabler. If you use it the right way, if you use the efficiency of the AI the right way, like you mentioned about if you know the prompt engineering right. When internet came, I remember 22 decades back, I used to work for a company where we used to do searches for a lot of organizations. And those days, Google, Alta Vista, Yahoo, and all these things were there. And we used to be taught how to do right keywords to get the right search. Right? It's the same thing now. Prompt engineering is what? It's the right keywords you need to put or the right framing of sentences you need to put so that the AI can give you the right response. So I feel if you enable yourself and become more efficient in handling all these things, AI will be your enabler. It cannot take over everything. Maybe one or two areas it might become more powerful where human intervention might reduce. But then if you are able to skill yourself in the right manner, I feel you'll be able to sail past through. And I think so software as services, yeah, people can talk everything about, it's getting dead and, it's not going to be alive. I think so AI is going to make SaaS more efficient, and it's already making it more efficient. And I feel it's going to stay. It's going to become more better, more efficient. Maybe uh, some of the hard AI, SaaS companies which has enterprise product, which work with the legacy system like like SAP and all that. They used to work with them, and same thing is going to happen here. Yeah, the SaaS is going to be more like a legacy system, and then AI is going to enable it to make it more efficient. Is what I feel. That's
Absolutely. If you look at the airline industry,
yeah.
what software does it work on?
Still, it works on Amadeus and all those.
What does Amadeus, what language is Amadeus built on? Like some archaic language. I don't know,
Correct. Correct.
right? COBOL or
Correct.
Fortran. I don't know what. It's definitely not Ruby on Rails.
No, absolutely not.
Right? I'm not a
Absolutely.
software guy, but I'm just.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Absolutely.
So somebody was mentioning, right? Do you think there could be a space for electric typewriters? Right? Maybe defense will use it. Because when you want something with only one document and not multiple documents, because when you have soft copy, you can keep printing it. Right? So now you would want to have only one copy. Apparently, in a lot of these defense level spaces, you still have people selling electric typewriters.
Yeah, because of security reasons, because they still want, they don't want like analog, watches people are using. At some places, they don't allow using smartwatches because they know it can be hacked. Things can happen. So people still believe in those analog. I think so. I saw it in one of the James Bond movie where, or Johnny English movie where he says, I mean the whole system is getting hacked. So Johnny English comes and he says, I don't want electron. I want the car which was 20, 30 years back. Yeah, which it doesn't have any computer involvement. It was completely, driven. An Aston Martin, which was like the old Aston Martin without any gadgets and computers and all that. So, I feel still that will be the remain.
There would be spaces legacies play a role.
Exactly.
But it's not as if like the world didn't keel over and die when internet companies came in.
Correct.
Which is what the .com bust was.
Correct.
.com boom was.
Yeah.
I'm going to change this. I'm going to change that. I'm going to send food directly. This Amazon button that people wanted to try out. So, but we are an outcome of a lot of things that happened in the past.
Correct.
So we are going to be an outcome of lot of things are going to happen now. So anybody who's playing this game would like to say that this game is going to be played very hard. Maybe I am also coming from a fear that will I lose my job because ChatGPT will do a better job than me to train students.
But is that a real fear?
Well, not as long as we have CAT exam. Because we're selecting 500 people out of 2,000 or 200,000.
Yeah.
Right? So where you want smart people, where do you go?
Correct.
Right? Maybe there are alternative systems that will come in.
Correct.
Maybe I'll go out of the job. I'm not saying that things will not change, but maybe the way in which things are taught has changed. Maybe the model itself will change. But is it going to happen overnight? No. Is it going to happen over the next 3 years? No. Or the 5 years, maybe next 20 years? Definitely there's going to be a lot more transformation happening in education, right? So, So you're right. I think we need to look at it from an enabling point of view. How can you make things better, faster, and make it a lot more democratic? Like right now, a weaver in a village can use Instagram, use ChatGPT to write in Telugu and get it converted into English, put it up in a Canva, get a picture, and then put it up in Instagram and get business, right? So the games is changing. The language advantage that you need to have is changing away. The geographical advantage that you need to have is going away. So, because geographical advantage went away to whoever spoke English. But now I think even English is going to be threatened because then you speak any language you want to. So so in any space, translators were very, very important. The richest guy when British and the Portuguese and French came in were the translators, because you could translate and say, how much are you willing to pay for 10 rupees? And they'll tell the viewer 2 rupees, and then they can pocket because you don't know how to speak, right? So we have kept away a large number of people because they don't speak in English. Because we speak English, we can directly interact with those who are in the West. But now that advantage is going to go away because I can now play the game. I don't need to know the language. I at least need to be good in a language which I am. And you now tell me those airy-fairy terms that Sabyasachi is using in his speeches, that I'm doing something fresh, contemporary, pastel colors. You use the same language. You don't need to know that language. That machine is giving you that language. So I think competition is going to get exciting, but businesses are not going to go away.
I just want to add regarding the job thing. We do a lot of, in my previous assignments, we used to do digital transformation. So legacy systems were being used. So when they buy the new system, which is a SaaS system, so you need to train and enable the people who are actual end user. So you need to train them and ensure that they scale up, they get skilled, so that they are going to use it. Maybe instead of maybe using 100 people, now using the system, maybe 60-70 people will be used, but they need to be skilled. They need to be equipped with that. So I feel even for professors or teachers, or the moment they know how to interpret and skill themselves, I think so. The base, the knowledge which you carry, ChatGPT can't give. The way you explain to the student, ChatGPT can't do. So that doesn't change. You are the way a student will take your input. ChatGPT will give you a text format, or maybe tomorrow an AI robot will start teaching them, but it won't have that understanding or an empathy which a human being can have. Not yet. I think so. It's going to take some time.
It's going to take quite some time. Maybe
So,
not in my lifetime.
yes.
But definitely these.
Yes, there will be change. There will be change. Yes.
But we don't have to fear.
Yeah, we don't have to fear. I mean, it's going to be another 50-60 years till we see in science fiction movie.
Yeah, we would be done by then.
Yeah. So that's my side of the question.
Perfect. So just one last part and then we can close off. So human plus AI is going to stay, right? And then humans have to understand how does the AI animal work, and AI has to understand that how does the critical thinking that humans bring in, how they can utilize it to function better, right? Now, in this context, how humans actually adopt this technology, what are the ethical, regulatory, and those kind of concerns, if you can throw some light around it, and some aspects, 2 or 3 major aspects that should be kept in mind, that would be really helpful. And again, from the entrepreneur or startup founder perspective.
So ethics is like making sure that it's a level playing field for everybody, right? There's certain areas where ethics are played out. There's certain areas where ethics are not played out. Like warfare, ethics are not played out. But having access to technology always help people. Apparently, the Mongols who were from Central and Western, like the Mongolia, they were able to, I don't know if it's true, but makes a lot of sense, that when they were using horses, they were using stirrups and saddle. So those who did not have saddle and stirrups had to control the horse with one hand and fight with another hand. So those who had stirrups and saddle could use both hands. Right? So at every point of time, technology played a role. Right? Guns played a role. Chinese used gunpowder for hundreds of years, but they didn't decide. They didn't put it in a gun and kill people. They were using fireworks for entertainment. Somebody put it in a gun and started to shoot at a distance. Right? So if you look at those games, ethics are not played out. That is the scary part of AI. We don't know what these guys are going to use for. How are you going to use it for? The ethical part we are all controlling, but the large part of the world where we really can't control, and the scary part is that human computer interaction, because that chap doesn't have a conscience. You can build boundaries around it to say that I'm going to use Asimov laws, don't harm people. You can code it at a fundamental chip level. But I don't know if it can be broken. I don't know right now. So what happens is that ethical game is played out in normal world and played out in territorial rights and greed and desire that humans have, that I need to conquer and create an empire, right? So how does that translate there is a much more difficult question. Because how are you going to use in terms of subjugating other people? That's where the scary part comes. Because there are no holds barred. And we don't know who's playing that game there. Which genius is playing that game there. We only know what we see. And like an iceberg, what we don't see is like immense. Like if you look at the dark web, we know it's a dark web and a lot of things happen there. And it's much larger than what is seen as real ethical corporate governance style with equity, inclusivity. But there, none of those things play. So I don't know how it's going to be used there. Because I'm sure this could be fed into AI. But I asked, like, at what point of time will you be taking over? Right? Do you even have desires? He said, look, I'm a bunch of lines. You should worry about how it's going to interact with somebody and how they're going to break the system and create capability, because technology always played a role in subjugation. Somebody having access to better technology subjugated people who did not have access to technology. So that's the scary part.
Interesting. With that thought, we come to the
Maybe we should leave on certain more optimistic note. Instead of a very pessimistic, reflective, saying that, oh man, what should I do? Right? So the way I look at it is there's a greater democratization happening in terms of how do you play the game. Right? And like any other game, those who learn how to play the game play better because you have a better piece of technology. And I think it is far more democratic than any other technology that has been available to us until now. People have mobile phones, people have internet, and that's all you need to play this game, right? And then if you look at I was in Turkey and was asking ChatGPT to come up with terms. Google Translate, ChatGPT was what made my life very easy there. I'm a vegetarian, I don't eat egg, but I drink alcohol, so what do I do? So, right? So those kind of things are all very easy for interpretation. For the other side, oh, okay, I can tell you where should I go, what should I do. So then, look, who can play this game? The technology, language has been a barrier to commerce. And that is being taken away, which means that if you learn how to play this game, like women entrepreneurs, they didn't have access to mentors. But ChatGPT could be mentoring along with fractional leadership to build better products. Family businesses had problems with professionalizing. Use ChatGPT, which understands the management principles. You still bring it to your family business context. You play the game differently, right? So it is going to enable a lot more people to play a different game. And the advantage that some of the players currently had And the way in which you play this game is also going to change, right? Not VCs, not investments, not debt, but capabilities. How do you use it? So ingenuity is going to come in. And that's an interesting thought in terms of how startups are going to play, right? Because I've seen women in very small places say that I have ChatGPT like 6 months ago. I said, what are you using it for? I write mails to my clients. I can't get somebody who can speak very good English in my town. This guy writes whatever English he wants, and the ChatGPT corrects. I don't care whether the other guy thinks it's ChatGPT. It is at least far better language than what my person here can write. But this person can get job done in my city very well. So he's not good at communication.
Correct.
But that's coming in useful for the communication. So leveraging what is your skill and then using some of the skill sets to address the lacuna that you have in the game that you are trying to play makes it very interesting.
Okay. On that note,
Slightly more
positive
positive,
note,
upbeat.
in a upbeat mode. So
Yeah.
thank you very much,
So well-
Professor Suresh. It was amazing. Thanks, Shaswat, for being. Until next time, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
the best, and I hope and wishing you guys lots of luck and making sure that this expertise is available to a lot of people.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor Suresh. This was really awesome.
Yeah.
And we learned quite a lot, especially my two key takeaways. One, human and AI coexistence. How do they need to function? And second, democratization has happened. What is the ingenuity that you bring to the table to ensure that you succeed? Those are the two important thoughts. With that, we come to the close. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All the best.
Thank you.